We all know that for every BSD character with an ability, there's a real book behind it. Except that isn't true. Half the abilities in BSD aren't even titles of anything, and the ones that are can range from a poem to a play. Let me explain, starting with the Armed Detective Agency members. Beast Beneath the Moonlight. This isn't a real title, but is rather a reference to one of Achi's short stories, The Moon Over the Mountain, released in 1942. We're introduced to Shang. He is noted as being a brilliant man working as a civil servant, but one day he decided to return to his hometown and began writing poetry. He wrote tirelessly for years to achieve fame as a poet, sacrificing his own mental and physical health in the process. However, fame never came for him, and he returned to work as a civil servant to make ends meet. While on a business trip at a rural inn, he ran off into the mountainside, never to be seen again. A year later, a friend of Li Zhang, Yuan Khan, travelled to the same area. He was told of a rumour about cannibal tigers living in the mountains by a local, but decided to explore the mountainside at night anyway despite the warning. Expectedly, he was attacked by a tiger. When it spoke, he immediately recognized the voice as Li Zhang's. They sat and talked for a while, before Yuan asked how he became a tiger. Li Zhang explains he heard a voice that called him into the woods, and as he followed it, he became more and more like a tiger before fully turning into one. He says he turned because of his cowardice and fragile self-esteem during his life as a human, because he valued his poetry more than his own family. While he can no longer become a poet, he asks Yuan to write down some of his poems before he becomes a tiger completely, which his friend does. He then asks Yuan to tell his family he died, which he promises he will do. Yuan leaves and looks back as the tiger howls at the moon, before disappearing in the mountains and never being seen again. Doppo poet, or Doppo Ginkaku in Japanese, is not a poem or anything, but rather straight up just one of the author's pen names. While he is most commonly known by his real name, Kunikida, he used a number of pen names throughout his career. Ginkaku in particular was used when publishing his poem Autumn Sunset in 1907. That poem is a description of nature after people have left an area and how the speaker feels about the time they spent there. The ability's English translation, The Matchless Poet, is a reference to Kunikida's influence on Japan's poetry scene. He was well known for his unique and lyrical style of writing that was inspired by his study of European literature. According to several random sources on the internet, it's also the name of a collection of his poetry, but I cannot find what poems it's a collection of, so I don't know. No Longer Human. This one is actually the correct title of a novel. Absolutely nothing funny intended, as it is a greatly upsetting book, but it has been covered to death. I feel bad repeating the same summary when others have done it so much better. If you're somehow unfamiliar, I will point you in the direction of Wendigoon's video on it. For facts surrounding it, the novel is Dazai's final and is something of a retelling of his life story, being released shortly before his final, fatal attempt in 1948. Light Snow. This is the title of a book, but not at the same time. The ability's Japanese name, Sasame Yuki, is the title of one of Tanizaki's books, published in 1936. While the title is correctly translated to Light Snow in the series, when publishing the book in English, the translators said fuck it and decided to call it the Makioka Sisters instead. So is, but isn't. You get it. As for the book itself, it follows the story of the Makioka family, specifically 4 sisters, Tsuruko, Sachiko, Yukiko, and Teiko, from oldest to youngest. They were a very rich family, but are currently facing financial strife. In light of this, they need to find Yukiko a husband. Her first marriage proposal was rejected due to his family history of disease. The second forced her to go to Tokyo for a widowed man. She disliked how attached he still was to his previous wife and refuses the proposal. Teiko is rescued from a flood by a man and falls in love with him. However, he's a low-class man, so the older sisters don't approve of their marriage, as it won't help them out of their financial situation at all. Stuff happens, and the guy ends up dying from disease, so that marriage falls through too. Later, Yukiko once again receives another marriage proposal. However, this time the man refuses to marry Yukiko after the first meeting. Teiko tries to get with another guy and ends up being kicked out of the family to elope with him. She then gets super sick, they have a whole thing about using his money and moving, but they end up staying and she recovers. She then cheats on him and gets pregnant with another guy's kid. The kid doesn't survive and she gets with the guy she cheated with. Another proposal comes for Yukiko, this time another guy from Tokyo. They meet and surprisingly both like each other, agreeing to the marriage. Thou Shalt Not Die. Yosano's ability is the title of a 1904 poem she wrote about her brother being forced to participate in war, specifically Japan's highly committed tactics they used. The poem was used a lot in anti-war campaigns, and as a result led to the government trying to ban the poem, as well as Yosano herself being attacked for writing it. Throughout the poem, she begs for her brother to not allow himself to be killed. She talks about how important he is to her and their family, how he needs to live in order to carry on the family name, run their merchant business, and to care for their parents. From my understanding, her brother did end up surviving the war. Super Deduction. Just like how it's not really an ability, it's also not really the title of anything. Instead, it's a reference to the real Rampo's genre of choice, mystery novels. Undefeated by the Rain. A real poem. I guess you could call it the opposite of No Longer Human in a way. You see, the poem was actually published after Miyazawa's death in 1931. The poem wasn't discovered until after he died, where it was found scrawled down in one of his notebooks. The messy handwriting suggests he wrote it while he was very sick, possibly as little as days before passing. The poem describes how he believes one should live, to be sympathetic and caring, to not be bested by the weather nor the hardships you face, to live within your means and be grateful for what you have, to help others with no desire for praise. The last line, "This is my goal, the person I want to become," hurts a whole lot when you know the context of the poem. All men are equal. Fukuzawa's ability name comes from the opening line of his 1876 essay, An Encouragement of Learning. Quote, "It is said that heaven does not create one man above or below another man. Any existing distinction between the wise and the stupid, between the rich and the poor, comes down to a matter of education." As the founder of Keio University, education was obviously a very important topic for Fukuzawa. The essay discusses how valuable learning is for everyone. Demon Snow. This is once again not really the title of anything. It seems like it's a combination of the name of Izumi's 1913 play, Demon Pond, and the name of one of the characters in the play, Shirayuki, which translates to white snow. In a small town, there is a pond that provides all the water for the people. Local legend says that a dragon lives there. The village people give offerings to the pond in order for blessings like rain. Shirayuki is someone who is sacrificed to the pond and is permanently bound to it. She is in love with a man from a different pond, but cannot leave the demon pond to see him or she will cause the destruction of the village. The main plot follows a married couple, Yuri and Akira. Yuri's family are responsible for ringing a bell by the pond 3 times a day. If this is not done, the dragon, which is actually just Shirayuki, will destroy the whole village. Akira takes over the bell ringing once he marries into the family. At some point, the villagers decide to sacrifice Yuri to be blessed with rain. Akira tries to stop them, and I guess he technically does stop the villagers from sacrificing Yuri, because she just decides to off herself. And then Akira also commits commitment for his wife. Anyway, Akira's friend takes over the ringing of the bell. If you enjoyed, let me know and I'll make a part 2 covering the Port Mafia. Or maybe I'll just do it regardless of anyone's opinions. I haven't decided yet. Thank you for your time.